I don't know. Oh, seriously, just get me a bed. Good evening. We are learning Maseches Rosh Hashana, Daf Yud. Just so that you know, by the time we get to Daf Lamed Daled, we will have learned 25% of all of Shas. So we are making our way. We're in the 22% or 21%, somewhere around there. I don't know exactly. Baruch Hashem, we are moving along about a third of the way done. About a fourth of the way done with the Masechta. 35 blot for the Masechta. Are you planning the seam?
That's the question.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much for taking it off my plate.
It's mostly Shabbos.
Yeah, it'll be great. Okay, Baruch Hashem. So we're starting at the bottom of Daf Testament Bays. Oh yeah, no, Shabbos will be over like 5:30. Very early. So we're starting 4 lines from the bottom, and we're going to be learning more about the sugya of Yovel. Let's say that a person plants a tree right before the Shemitah year. So as a general rule, if you were to plant something during the Shemitah year, you would have to uproot it, tear it out of the ground. You're not allowed to let it grow. What if you planted something a little bit beforehand? How far before do you have to plant it to make the assumption that it would have rooted to the point that it's considered previous year and not the year of Shemitah? So that's a discussion of the Gemara. The Gemara says, Tanu Rabbana, it's a Tosefta. The Tosefta reads as follows. Echad hanotea, a person who plants. Echad hamavrich. To be mavrich, Rashi here points out, that's where a person takes a branch and they bend it down in a way where it goes into the ground and they make it come out again. Apparently, with some kinds of trees, this could end up being another tree, although all connected. The echad hamarkiv, someone who does grafting, which is something that we're more familiar with now, but they even did this then, where they would take the branch of one tree and cut the initial tree and then merge them together, which is effectively what we do, which is grafting. And if you did so on Erev Shvi, so what's the line in the sand? So just someone say something? Sorry.
That's why it's not kilayim.
Only certain things are kilayim, different types of vegetation. But if you take orange tree X and orange tree Y, then no, it has to be different types. So it says the Gemara, Shloshim Yom Lifnei Rosh Hashana. If you are 30 days or more before the turn of the year, so it's Rosh Chodesh Elul, effectively a month before. Also, lo Shana. First of all, you should just know that this counts as year 1 for Orla. We know that Orla is fruits that you are not allowed to eat in its first 3 years. And we said that the Rosh Hashanah for Orla is Tishrei, is Aleph Tishrei. So says the Gemara, if you plant a tree 30 days plus prior to Rosh Hashanah, so then that counts as year 1 of your Orla, even though it's only 30 days, it's a partial of the year, but Mixas Hashana Kekula, effectively, we're used to Mixas Hayom Kekula. We'll be discussing this more at length today, but the Gemara says that also Lo Shana, it counts as a year, and as well, Umutter L'Kaim and B'Shvius, this is not the kind of tree that you would need to tear down. So if I have a tree in front of my house, that's actually on my neighbor's property, but let's say that it grows fruits, I don't have to tear it down. It's been there for 40 years. The tree's fine. So it's 80 feet tall. The girth is like 5 feet wide. It's a huge tree. It's not good. I don't have to tear it down. But if I planted a new tree within 20, 30 days of Rosh Hashanah, if it's not yet 30 days out, so then you have to tear it out of the ground. But here, says the Gemara, 30 plus days is considered enough time for it to root. And if the tree roots in the ground, then you're good to go. And it is not a problem of Shvius. However, Pachos Mishloshim Yom Lifnei Rosh Hashanah, within 30 days, Lo also Lo Shana. So 30 days is the line. If it's less than 30 days until Rosh Hashanah, then it is not considered to be a year of Orla. It's year 0 and not year 1. And the Asr, L'Kaim and B'Shvius, you're not even allowed to let them stay. You have to uproot them during the Shemitah year. And on the top of Yud Amud Aleph, this Tosefta continues. Uperos Netia, the fruits of the tree that you planted, even the one that you planted beyond 30 days, let's say you did it 2 months out, Asurin ad tu bishvat. And we have a seemingly some type of injunction that we're not allowed to benefit from the fruits of this tree that was planted, let's call it 31 days prior, that you're not allowed to benefit from. Imla orla. If the year prior would have been the 3rd year of Orla, then here in year 4, we would still treat it as Orla until Tu Bishvat. Imla revai. And if the concern was year 4. We know that in year 4 of an Orla tree, one is allowed to eat the fruits, but only in Yerushalayim. It's called Neta Revai. And the halacha is that it has to be eaten only there. So if year 4 was a Yerushalayim year where you could eat the Orla there, so says the Tosefta, then that year until Tu Bishvat, really it's year 5, because we've gone over Rosh Hashana, but that applies in a case where the tree was planted like this, very, very close, 31 days, let's call it, prior to Rosh Hashana. Where do we know this from? In Nohanimili, second line of Daf Yomi Aleph, says the Gemara, Amar Reb Chia bar Abba, Amar Reb Yochanan. So that this is going very early Amoraim. However, Umatuba Mishmei de Rav Yanai, some say that it was really in the name of Rav Yanai. So a discussion about not so much the integrity of this comment, but about the authorship of this comment. Amar Kra, the pasuk has two different references to years. Now, this isn't an exact quote, but the Gemara here is trying to pick on the psukim to say that it says both. Uvashana ha'revi'is, uvashana ha'chamishi. So what does that mean? Pa'amim sheberevi'is ve'adayin asur mishum orla. There are times that even in the fourth year, we're still going to have a prohibition of orla. That's our case. That's our tosefta, which is a case where the tree was planted 31 days before. So in its fourth year, from Aleph Tishrei in year 4 until Tu B'Shvat, we still treat it with the halachos of orla and ve'adayin asur mishum orla. Upa'amim shebechamishes, and sometimes even in the fifth year, we still have ve'adayin asura mishum ravai, that you're not allowed to treat it like regular food that you can eat at home. You still need to bring it to Yerushalayim, even though it's the fifth year. And then the Gemara says, and with this we'll carry about an amid's worth of Gemara. The Gemara says, Lema, maybe we should say that our Tosefta, which discusses 30 days as the line in the sand, where we would say that yes, it has rooted if it's 30 plus days away from Rosh Hashanah, or no, it has not if it's 29 or less. That must be lema de lo Rav Meir. It has to be that is not like the shita of Rav Meir. Why? Because the Rav Meir, if it is Rav Meir, what does Rav Meir say? We're 1/3 of the way down, almost halfway down on Yud Aleph. Ha'amar, he says Yom Echad b'Shana Chashuv Shana. He says that one day of the year can be given the value of a year. Now, if Rav Meir holds that one day of the year is considered to be valued of a year, so then why does the Tosefta say that 30 days is the breaking point for planting a tree, so that it's one that doesn't need to be uprooted during the Shemitah year? If Rav Meir really holds that one day is sufficient, so then he can't be the author of the Tosefta. He can't be in agreement with the Tosefta, because the Tosefta doesn't say like Rav Meir that it should be one day, but rather that it should be 30 days. And what's the source that shows us Rav Meir's shita that he holds that Yom Echad b'Shana Chashuv Shana, that one day of the year in certain halachic frames can be equivalent to a year? Tanya, the Brisa writes, Par ha'amar b'Torah stam. Whenever we see that a par needs to be brought in the Torah, we typically assume that it's 3 years, that it has to be 3 years old. How does Rav Meir spin that? Ben esrim ve'arba chodesh v'yom echad divrei Rav Meir. 24 months, 2 full years, plus 1 day. What does that show us? That if it's true that an animal that's a par in the Torah, when referenced stam, that it has to be 3 years old before it's brought. And if Rav Meir says that it's 24 months plus a day, so the first 2 years are done, completely check the box. So that next day, once 1 day is completed, there's 1 day. We consider that to be 3 years. What do we see from Rav Meir? That 1 day is equivalent to a year. That's the shita of Rav Meir. His counterpart, Rabbi Lazar, halfway down in Yud Aleph. Rabbi Lazar Omer ben Esrim ve'arba chodesh ve'lamed yom. He says it's 24 months plus 30 more days. He says it's not so simple. 1 day is not really considered a year. Shahaya Rav Meir Omer, Rav Meir Shita, in regards to the 1 month, the 1 day is equal to a year. What does he say? Kol makom shenemar egel b'Torah stam. Whenever the Torah refers to an egel, that animal, ben shana has to be a year old. Ben bakar, if it's the child of a bakar of cattle. Ben shtaim, it has to be 2. Par, if it's the par itself, a cow. Ben shalosh. So that's where our question mark goes, which is, how can Rav Meir be like our Mishnah? That was what we said. Lema, that our Tosefta is not like Rav Meir, because what did our Tosefta say on the bottom of Testament Beis? Our Tosefta said that the way we determine whether or not a tree is rooted in the ground as it relates to Shemitah is if it's been 30 days. But if we held like Rav Meir holds that 1 day is equivalent to the year. So he should have said on Lamed Elul or Chaf Tes Elul, whatever the last day of Elul is, depending on how Rosh Chodesh was set. So maybe we should say, as long as you planted that 1 day earlier, you're good to go. So obviously, our Tosefta, which says 30 days, can't be like Rav Meir, who says 1 day. So therefore, says the Gemara 6-7 lines from the bottom of Yud Aleph, Afilu Tema Rav Meir, we could even say that our Tosefta follows like the Shita of Rav Meir. Why? Ki ka'amar Rav Meir Yom Echad b'Shana Chashuv Shana. When do we say that Rav Meir is of the opinion that one day at times has the halachic equivalent to a year. That's only true b'sof shana. That's only true at the end of a year. So for example, in the third year of Orla, we can treat one day as a year. Haval b'tchilas shana, but to start the count, which is what our Tosefta is talking about. Remember what we're trying to do. Remember what our Tosefta said is also lo shana, that it's considered, if you planted it 31 days before Rosh Hashana, also lo shana, it's considered a year of Orla. Which year of Orla is that counted as? That's year one. So Rav Meir says, no, I'm not saying that Yom Echad, that one day is equivalent to a year when you're beginning a count, only when you're ending a count. Amar Rava, that's ridiculous. Rava says, respectfully, Rava says that's not correct. V'lav kal v'chomer, who I could argue the exact opposite way based on a kal v'chomer. This is a very subtle argument. Says the Gemara as follows. As a frame before we discuss this, we can't get confused with the nida as to how the Gemara refers to it and the way that we keep Hilchos Nida. The nida based on the Psukim and Chumash is when a woman sees blood, after 7 days, she can go to the mikvah. We don't do that. We are concerned about the possibility that if a woman sees blood for multiple days in a row, that she might not just be a nida, she might also be a zava gedola. And a zava gedola is obligated in sheva nekiyim, in 7 clean days. So the way that our halachos have developed for hilchos nida is that from the time a woman sees dam, she waits 5 days for the period itself, and then we add 7 clean days. But that's not what the Psukim and Chumash say. We do that out of concern of Zava Gedola. But the Psukim and Chumash say that after day 7, from the time she saw blood, on day 8, she can go to the mikvah free and clear, no problem. With that as a framing, with the Torah's understanding of, with the Psukim and how we look at Nida, not the way we keep it today. Uma Nida, just like a Nida, She'ein Tchilas Hayom Olala B'Sofa, that day at the end, the 7th day, we don't say that day is considered mixas hayom kikulo. A woman wakes up, it's the 7th day she wakes up. Great, mixas hayom kikulo, go jump in the water. All is well. No, we don't say that. Yet we say sof hayom olala betchilasa. But at the end of the first day, we do say that, namely if a woman got her period 5 minutes before Shkia, we consider that day 1 of the count of her nida. So says the Gemara, Shana, a year, sheyom echad olala besofa, a year where even 1 day at the end of the year does count. Eino din, wouldn't it automatically be the case? Sheyom echad ola betchilasa, and this then rejects the shita that we tried to say in the name of Rav Meir. Let's just get our bearings. We said in the Tosefta that it's 30 days prior in order to determine that something is also low as it relates to the years of Orla, or that as it relates to Shemitah, that it is considered to be rooted in the ground. And then we asked, obviously, if 30 days is the measure, it can't be Rav Meir. And then we said, no, it could even be Rav Meir because Rav Meir was only talking about 1 day being a year at the end of the count. Rava says, based on a kal v'chomer from Nida, that can't be. And what that means is that we're in a place right now where our Mishnah is not like Rav Meir. So says the Gemara on the top of Yud Amud Beis, ve'elamai, Rebbe Lazar. What, you're going to say that our Mishnah is like his counterpart who says that we need to add 30 days? That's impossible. Shloshim v'shloshim boy. He would need 60 days, 30 for the rooting of the plants, and then an additional 30 because he considers 30 to be representative of a year. Ditnan, because we have a Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says, similar to what we saw in the Tosefta with which we started, but not identical. Ein notin ve'ein mavrichin ve'ein markivin erev shvius. One is not allowed to plant. One is not allowed to bend a branch under the ground and let it come out in another location to regrow. Ve'ein markivin, no grafting on erev shvius. Pachos milamed yom lifnei Rosh Hashana. Within 30 days, you're not allowed. Ve'im nata v'hivrich v'hirkiv ya'akor. If you did any of these malachos, if you planted or if you bent the branch into the ground and brought it out in a new location or grafted, the halacha is ya'akor. It had to be uprooted because you're within 30 days. So that's one shita. We take out the words Divrei Rebbe Lazar. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kol Harkava She'ena Koletes Begimel Yomim Shuvena Koletes. No, it's not 30 days. It only takes 3 days for roots to begin, and anything that doesn't begin to root within 3 days is not going to root. That's shita number 2. Shita number 3 in the Mishnah, 6-7 lines down. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon Omrim Shtei Shabbosos, 2 full weeks. 2 full weeks is the amount of time that it takes for something to root, and if it doesn't start rooting by then, you're done. You don't have to worry about it. That's all in the Mishnah. Comes along the Amoraim. V'amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avuha, L'divrei ha'omer lamid, according to the Shita that says that it takes 30 days in order for the tree to root, tzarech lamid ushloshim. We need 30 for the rooting, for the plant to actually take. And then we need an additional 30 days to be representative of what would be the next year. And l'divrei ha'omer shlosha, according to the Shita that says that it's really only 3 days, that's the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda, the most lenient of all Shitas. According to him, then it should be 33 days. He says, tzarich shlosho shloshim, 3 days for the rooting and 30 days for that to be considered a year, at least 30 days prior to Tishrei. And l'divrei ha'omer beis shabbasos, according to the Shita of Rabbi Yossi and Reb Shimon, who says that rooting of a tree takes 2 weeks, tzarich shtei shabbasos, then how long does it have to be prior to Rosh Hashana in order for it to be considered a year of Orla? And in order for us to not need to uproot it on the holiday, on the year of Shemitah, so then he says it must be tzarich shtei shabbasos ushloshim yom. Then it has to be 2 weeks. It has to be 14 days plus 30 days prior. So it have to be 44 days prior to the Shemitah year. The inami Rabbi Yehuda, even if you want to say like the most lenient Shita, still svirulei gimel ushloshim bay, it would still be the case that we need 33 days. So question mark, the Gemara says, if what you're saying is true, that our Mishnah, our Tosefta is not like Rav Meir, you still can't say that it's like Rav Elazar, because according to Rabbi Eliezer, he would need a minimum of 30 days on top of however long it takes for the trees to root prior to Rosh Hashanah. So says the Gemara, you're absolutely right, 1/3 of the way down. And we're going to be wrapping up to the top of Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, because that blot is a little bit of a longer blot, at least that first Amud. Elul Olam, says the Gemara, 1/3 of the way down. Let's go back to our original answer. Really, our Tosefta is Rav Meir. V'chika Amar Lamed Liklita. Really, Rav Meir does hold that 1 day is sufficient to be representative of a year. And even if you were 1 day prior to Rosh Hashanah, Chaf Tes Elul, the halacha is that if you plant something, in theory at least, it should count as your first year of Orla. But there is a technical problem, which is that it hasn't rooted yet. It's not a problem of Shemitah per se, because it is only a problem of Shemitah in that we need it to root, but 1 day is considered to be 1 year. Yihachi, says the Gemara, if that's true, then Lamed Aleph Ba'e. If that's true, then why does our Tosefta say that we need 30 days? If Rav Meir's right that we need 1 day to be representative of a year and 30 days prior to Rosh Hashanah for the tree to take, then our Tosefta at the bottom of Testament Beis should have said we needed 31 days and not 30. 30 for the time for it to absorb into the ground, and 1 day to be representative of the year. So says the Gemara, Rav Meir has a big kula, kasavar. What does he hold? Yom Lamed, the 30th day is Ola Lakanu Lakan. The 30th day is counted in 2 different directions. First, it's counted as day 30 of the amount of time it takes to root. And secondly, day 30 is counted as the 1 day that's representative of the final day of the year, therefore allowing that 1 day to create for the year 1 of Orla, and therefore the answer still works. And this brings us, says the Gemara, to try and understand the machlokas of Rav Meir and Rav Elazar still more. Rav Meir was of the opinion that at times, under certain circumstances, that 1 day could be representative of the year. And the way that Rav Meir was sharing this with us is that if there were to have been 1 day of a rooted tree prior to the Shemitah year, then that's considered okay, no problem at all. And Rav Meir and Rabbi Eliezer was of the opinion that we need 30 days to be representative of the year. What are they arguing about? What's the nekudas hamachlokas between Rav Meir, who holds that 1 day is representative of a year, and Rabbi Eliezer, who holds that 30 days is representative of the year? So Amar Rav Yochanan v'shnehem mikra echad darshu. They both hold that we're talking about one pasuk. What is the pasuk? Vayhi be'achas, it was 1 v'sheish me'os shana, and 600 years. V'rishon be'echad chodesh, a pasuk in Sefer Breshis in regards to Parshas Noach. Now the way the pasuk is phrased is be'achas, 1, and v'sheish me'os shana, in the first of the month. Rav Meir Savar, mide'akati yom echad hu de'ayel b'shana, v'kakari lashana. We see that there's a reference to even only one day, and in the same pasuk it speaks about a year. Shma mina yom echad b'shana chashuv shana. It's word association. If the pasuk says day and year in the same pasuk, so Rav Meir says dayenu, that's enough for me to say that at times even one day can be representative of 1 year. Now, in argument of this shita, what would Rabbi Eliezer say? Ve'idach. What would his counterpart say? The other one would say, Rabbi Eliezer would say that iksiv, had it been that the pasuk was worded differently, that the achas was not before the sheish meos, that what do we have? Iksiv b'sheish meos ve'achas b'shana. Had it been that it was 601 kidduka amris, I would agree with you, but that's not what the pasuk says. Argues Rabbi Eliezer, where it says that there's year one, it was really only 1 day, shana, but the year of achas was not near the word shana, then the shana ashesh meos kai. The word shana is only connected to 600, but it's disconnected from achas, and therefore we can't learn that the 1 day of that 601st year is considered to be a shana because it's dissociated from the actual word of shana. And sheish, yes, and then umay achas. What then, according to Rabbi Eliezer, does the word achas mean? Atchalta de achas kamar. Just saying, it's the beginning of the first year. That's all. It was just telling us a historical fact that it was in the beginning of the first year, but not meant to teach me anything else. And all of that was the way Rab Meir explained himself and how Rabbi Eliezer would respond. But what was Rabbi Eliezer's svara? How did Rabbi Eliezer get to 30? So Rabbi Eliezer says the reason that he knows that 30 days is the requisite amount of days prior to Shemitah that something needs to root is from the following: 2/3, 3/4 of the way down on Yud Amud Beis. Rabbi Eliezer, my taima. What is the reason why he holds that 30 days is the measure prior to Shemitah? Dichsiv, because the pasuk says Berishon ve'echad lachodesh, on the first of the month. Yom echadhu de'ayel b'chodesh v'kakari lachodesh, because we see that there is 1 day that's referenced in the context of chodesh. So therefore, says the Gemara, v'kakari lachodesh shma mina yom echad b'chodesh chashuv chodesh. I do agree that sometimes 1 day is representative of more than 1 day, and it may well be representative of 1 month. Umidi yom echad b'chodesh chashuv chodesh, and because the components of a month are broken down into days, and therefore 1 day can be representative of a month, the same is true for a year. Lamed yom b'shana chashuv m'shana. The components of a year is months, and therefore 30 days is a month, and it can therefore be that 30 days is representative of a year. V'chodesh limnuyav, a month is counted by its parts. V'shana limnuyaha, and a year is counted by its parts. So according to Rav Meir, when we talk about 1 day, because 1 day are the parts that make up a month, therefore 1 day at times can be representative of a month. But because the components that comprise a year are months themselves and not days, therefore we can allow a month to be representative of a year, which is 30 days. And that brings us to a new and quick brisa, which will bring us to the top of the page, and then we'll stop. Says the Gemara Tanya, the brisa writes, Rabbi Eliezer Omer b'Tishrei nivra ha'olam, that the world was created in the month of Tishrei. As well, b'Tishrei noldu avos, b'Tishrei mesu avos. In Tishrei, the forefathers were born, and in Tishrei they died. B'Pesach nolad Yitzchak. Yitzchak was born around Pesach season. B'Rosh Hashana nifkeda Sarah Rachel v'Chana. That the imahos, they were davening on Rosh Hashana, and that was when they were nifkeda. That was when they got the schus, that they were the din. Meets, or what's the pasuk? Nifkad lefanecha kol chai. Can't remember right now. Something in Unasana Tokef, no? I should know this. I don't remember. Okay, so it says the Gemara that on Rosh Hashana they were guaranteed to conceive. The Rosh Hashana Yatza Yosef mi Beis Asurin, and on Rosh Hashana Yosef got out of jail. But Rosh Hashana Batla Avoda me'Avoseinu b'Mitzrayim, top of Yud Aleph, that they ended up not having to do avoda, and this was, as Rashi highlights. Take a look at the second Rashi. But la avoda me'avoseinu shisha chodashim lifnei geulasam pasak hashivud. Who knew? A beautiful Gemara. 6 months prior to Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Jewish people no longer had to do the avoda. Unbelievable. Anyway, it says the Gemara that b'Nisan nigalu and b'Tishrei asidin ligoel. In Nisan, the Jews exited Egypt. That's Mefurash Psukim and Chumash that we know. And in the future, says this Shita in the Brisa, which is the Shita of Rabbi Eliezer, he says that it will be in the month of Tishrei that we will be redeemed. But all of these Shitas of Tishrei and Pesach and Rosh Hashanah All of this is the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer. With some slight differences, Rabbi Yehoshua argues. Rabbi Yehoshua on Yud Aleph Amud Aleph on the second line writes, Omer ben Nisan nivra ha'olam. No, the world was not created in Tishrei, it was created in Nisan. Ben Nisan noldu avos, ben Nisan mesu avos. Very different, 6 months apart. He holds, unlike his counterpart, that in Nisan is when the avos of the forefathers were born and that they died in Nisan as well. The Pesach Nolad Yitzchak, there he agrees with Rabbi Eliezer. The Rosh Hashana Nifkeda Sarah Rachel V'Chana, that was the day upon which they were given the bracha that they would have children. The Rosh Hashana Yatza Yosef Mibeisa Asurin, there as well, he agrees. And the Rosh Hashana Batla Avoda Me'avosena B'Mitzrayim, that the Jewish people, they were able to cancel out their avoda in Mitzrayim 6 months before. B'Nisan Nigalu, and here's a difference. B'Nisan Asidin Ligal. This is the line that we see quoted more regularly. B'Nisan Nigalu, that the Jews exited Mitzrayim at that time, and B'Nisan Asidin Ligal, that the Jews would end up leaving Egypt during that very same month. So we already passed Tishrei for this year. So let's hope we paskin like Rabbi Yehoshua. I don't know if we paskin like him in general, but this hopefully will be true because Nisan is upon us before Tishrei. We'll stop right here at this next Tanya, about 8 lines down on Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. Wishing you all a beautiful night.